Here in Excel, there are 3 different types of data you can add to a spreadsheet here in your workbook. You can add text, such as for labels. You can add numbers to be calculated. And lastly, you can add formulas. There are also functions which are built-in formulas already created for you. So those 3 can be entered into a spreadsheet. In this movie, we're going to focus on the text and the numbers. Now, as you can see, this is different than working with a word processing application where we see pages, for example, that would print out the way we see them on screen. Here, we're working with a spreadsheet made up of columns and rows. Some of those columns may not be wide enough. Some of the rows not tall enough. We'll talk all about how that works. Let's start, though, right here in cell A1. Every cell has its own address. Cell A1 is the very first one up here in the top left corner. Let's type in something that definitely won't fit in that cell and see what happens. We'll type in leaf and mortar. And as you can see, when we get past the border, it just continues on to the next cell. It's not actually in cell B1, and as we continue to type C and D, it's overlapping those cells because there's nothing in them. We're able to see what we're typing. So we'll continue. We'll leave a space, a dash, and a space, and just type in something like revenues 2019. And then in brackets, we'll add in millions USD, and then a closing bracket, and press Enter on your keyboard. As you can see, it does continue past column A all the way into column E, although if we went to any of those cells, they'd be empty. Let's check it out. Go to cell A1, just click there. You can see up here just above the various column headings is where we can go to make changes if we wanted to. So in here is where we do the editing, and as you can see, it's filled with all of our content. If we go to cell B1, just click in column B, row 1, you can see it's empty. Same thing with C, D, and E. If we wanted to add anything to those cells, what we see currently would get cut off. It'd still be there, we just wouldn't be able to see it. And would have to start adjusting things like column widths, which we will get to a little bit later. For now, though, let's continue typing in some content. Let's leave a couple of blank rows here, and we'll go to, how about C4? Column C, row 4, you can see how they're shaded. Let's just start typing. We'll type in the short form for January, Jan. Hit your Tab key. That's one way to quickly move left to right. Type in Feb, hit Tab, type in MAR. This time press Enter, and it wraps back down around underneath January, where we could continue typing if we wanted to. Let's go over here to cell A4 and type in location. Now hit Enter, and hit Enter again. Takes us down to row 6. So we're in cell A6 now, ready to continue typing. And in case you don't know where you are, when you click in a cell, we do see that shading to help remind us, but it's also up here in the top left-hand side in the name box. Okay, so we'll go back to A6, clicking there. Let's type in some locations like Canada, press Enter. We'll type in United States. That's not going to fit, but we won't worry about it. Press Enter. Europe, and lastly, Asia. Now hit Enter a couple of times because down here is where we want to see totals for January, February, and March. We'll type in totals and a colon like so. So what we have right now is simple text. And as you can see in each cell, it's left aligned. Everything's lined up on the left. That's the default alignment, things that can be adjusted. And we'll do all of these things as we move through the movies and chapters in this course. Let's go to cell C6. That's under January to the right of Canada. Let's type in some numbers now and see what happens. Remember, this is in millions of dollars US, so we'll type in 2.95. Hit your Tab key to go to February. Notice how numbers are right aligned by default. Let's type in 2.99. Tab over to March and type in 3.02. When we hit Enter, you can see it takes us back down to the next row under January where we can continue typing. So 3.11, we'll tab over. 3.05 if you're following along. 3.44 for March. And we'll fill in Europe and Asia as well. When you get to the last number, just press Enter and it's locked in. So all the numbers are lined up nicely on the right. That comes in handy when you see columns of numbers with decimals like we have. Of course, we can format those numbers to look like dollar amounts if we wanted to, and a number of other different options we'll discuss later. Right now we have our contents. What we don't have are the formulas that are going to work with those numbers. We'll get to those next, but just before we do, we need to save our changes. So let's go up to the Save button up here on the Quick Access toolbar. Control S is your keyboard shortcut. If this already had a name, clicking this would simply update it, saving the changes. If it doesn't, it's the same as going to File down below and choosing Save As. You can see Save As down here. But we'll hit the back arrow and just click the Save button. It's fastest. There's Save As. You can see how it took us right to it. And now it's just time to choose where we want to save it. We can go down to Browse. Let's click Browse, and let's browse to the desktop. We'll put it right on the desktop. How about? Book 1 is the name by default, but of course we can change that. And it will be saved by default as an Excel workbook with the extension XLSX. That's the newest format. So let's type in a name like LM as in leaf and mortar, revenues, like so. Click Save, and that's going to show up here at the very top of our screen. And every time we make adjustments or changes to this, we can now click the Save button to update those changes, saving along the way. So that's part of what we can add to a workbook here in Excel: text, numbers. Next, it's the calculations, the formulas and functions that will work with the contents we've added. We'll do that next.